Yes, good evening everyone once again. Actually, I had started to record, but because of some reasons, I could not actually continue that recording. Okay, so let us see at this particular slide. There was a lot of disturbance, so I had to put off that recording and once again start all over again. Okay, so astronomy and astrology we had already learned, right? So the chart state about which we were going to learn today. Okay, the chart, what were charts? Charts were actually an agricultural caste. Okay, and they inhabited the region around Delhi, Agra and Mathura. Okay, where is Delhi, Agra and Mathura? I don't need to tell you. Okay, Delhi and the nearby Uttar Pradesh regions, those are the regions around Delhi, Agra and Mathura. Okay, during the reign of Aurangzeb, what happened? So as these were an agricultural caste, so most of them were peasants. Okay, so during the reign of Aurangzeb, Jat peasants had revolted under the leadership of Jat zamindars. Okay, so during the reign of Aurangzeb, because of harsh tax collection, as the tax collection was very harsh, so they had revolted actually. Okay, unlike the reign of Akbar, during which the tax collection was not very harsh, but later on because of Mansabdari system, the tax collection became very harsh. Okay, so weak successors of Aurangzeb actually gave Jats the opportunity to establish their independence. Okay, so now after Aurangzeb his successors were very weak, so this gave Jats the opportunity to establish their independence. Okay, and during the reign of Aurangzeb these revolts were successfully suppressed. Okay, but after Aurangzeb, when his weak successors took over, the opportunity to establish their independence once again came towards Jats. Okay, so they did so. The Jat state of Bharatpur was founded by Churaman and Badan Singh. Okay, now the Jat state of Bharatpur was founded by Churaman and Badan Singh. This fact can be asked in the form of statement in prelims. Okay, so very important fact for prelims, that the Jat state of Bharatpur was founded by Churaman and Badan Singh. Okay, Churaman and Badan Singh. So Aurangzeb was in short unable to suppress the spirit of Jats. Okay, so let us see once again if you have found it very fast. Okay, so let us see once again that Jats were an agricultural caste. They inhabited the region around Delhi, Agra and Mathura. Okay, now do not get confused between inhibited and inhabited. Okay, inhibition means to stop the growth. Okay, that means inhibition. Okay, that is different. Inhibition is different. Inhibition is different. Okay, inhibition means uh, you stop the growth of some bacteria or something, that is called as inhibition. Okay, inhibition of growth. But inhabited is very different. Inhabit means to reside somewhere. Okay, so Jats inhabited the region around Delhi, Agra and Mathura. During the reign of Aurangzeb, Jat peasants had revolted under the leadership of Jat zamindars. Okay, but during the reign of Aurangzeb, these revolts were suppressed, but still the region remained disturbed. The weak successors after Aurangzeb from Bahadur Shah onwards, this gave Jats the opportunity to establish their independence. So, seeing this opportunity, the Jat state of Bharatpur was founded by Churaman and Badan Singh. Okay. So, in short, Aurangzeb could not suppress the spirit of Jats. Now, the Jat power. Now, who is the most important king of the Jat state? Okay, that is Maharaja Surajmal actually. Okay, so the Jat state, the Jat power reached its zenith. During the reign of, what does it mean by reached its zenith? Reached it, reached its zenith means at its peak level. Okay, at its highest glory point. Okay, at its most glorious point. So means the most expanded region. Okay, the highest, the most, what we can say, most area. Okay, when during different periods the Jat state was small, big. Okay, depending on which year we are talking about. Suppose, let me give you an example. Okay, what does it mean by reached its zenith? Suppose let us suppose in 1750 the Jat occupied this much of area. Okay, then in 1752 they occupied this much of area, then in 1754 they occupied this much of area, then in 1756 they again shrinked. Okay, so this is the year when the Jat power has reached its zenith. Okay, so 1754 year will be called as the year when Jat power has reached its zenith. Okay, so such is the thing. So when did the Jat power reach its zenith? It reached its zenith during the reign of Maharaja Surajmal. Okay, so see, the Jat power reached its zenith during the reign of Maharaja Surajmal. And Maharaja Surajmal ruled from 1755 till 1763. Okay, you must be aware that these years are not at all important as far as UPSC is concerned. Okay, these years, that 1755, 1763, all these years are not at all important as far as UPSC is concerned. Okay, so do not just it was around 1750s and 60s, this much you should remember. Okay, because whenever some question will be asked based on timelines, so that will be actually chronology based question. Okay, crude factual question based on year, from which year till which year did Maharaja Surajmal rule. Such questions are not asked in UPSC. Such questions are asked in Delhi Police Constable exam. Okay, so Jat state actually reached its zenith during the reign of Maharaja Surajmal, that is from 1755 till 1763. This is the years. These are the years during which Maharaja Surajmal ruled. So almost he ruled for 8 years. Okay. So during his reign, what happened? He expanded a lot. Okay. So his rule extended. His rule extended to large areas. Around Delhi, like, okay, vast regions around Delhi like Agra, Mathura, Aligarh. Okay, Bharatpur, Alwar. Okay, Alwar is in Rajasthan. Okay, Alwar, etc. Okay. He even won Delhi 2 times. Okay, he won Delhi 2 times as the Mughals were very weak. So he won Delhi 2 times. Okay. So he won Delhi 2 times. Once in 1753. Okay. And second time in 1763. Okay. He fought more than 80 battles. He fought more than 80 battles. He fought more than 80 battles and was never defeated in any of them. And was never defeated in any of them. So he won 80 battles out of 80. Okay, such was his uh, valor. Okay. However, after his death, what happened? However, after his death in 1763, the Jat power started declining. Okay. Now, some Western historians, okay, call Maharaja Surajmal, okay. Now Maharaja Surajmal, he is called as the Plateau of Jat tribe by Western historians. Plateau of Jat tribe. So where did he die? He died in an ambush. Died in an ambush by Rohilla Afghans. Okay. Okay, Rohilkhand area, there Afghans live. Okay. So what does it mean by ambush? Okay. So he died in an ambush with Rohilla Afghans. Okay. So ambush means an unprepared sudden attack. That is called as ambush. Unprepared sudden attack is called as ambush. So Maharaja Surajmal basically died in an ambush with Rohilla Afghans. Okay. Marathas actually had approached. Okay. Marathas had approached Maharaja Surajmal Marathas had approached Maharaja Surajmal before third battle of Panipat. Marathas had approached Maharaja Surajmal before third battle of Panipat. But there was a problem. Okay. But there was a problem. The problem was Sadashiv Rao house. Okay. Sadashiv Rao Bhau. Sadashiv Rao Bhau's behavior was arrogant. Okay. Behavior was arrogant. So he behaved arrogantly with Maharaja Surajmal. So Maharaja Surajmal, instead of helping him open-mindedly, okay, Maharaja Surajmal that's why did not help Marathas openly, okay, because Sadashiv Rao's behavior was very arrogant. Now who is this Sadashiv Rao? We have already learnt in the previous classes. If you haven't watched the previous classes, then I am not, do not put me to blame, okay. You yourself are responsible for your failure. You didn't watch the previous classes and you are coming to this class, then how will you understand? Okay. So you must actually watch the playlist in sequence actually. Okay. So Sadashiv Rao Bhau's behavior was arrogant. And one more thing was there, that actually Ahmad Shah Abdali during the third battle of Panipat, both the Marathas had also approached Maharaja Surajmal, and Ahmad Shah Abdali had also approached Maharaja Surajmal. Okay. So Ahmad Shah Abdali had also approached Maharaja Surajmal. So Maharaja Surajmal, what did he do? As the concept of modern day nationalism was not there. Okay, concept of modern day nationalism did not exist at that time. Okay, so Maharaja Surajmal actually agreed to be neutral. Okay, so Maharaja Surajmal agreed to be neutral. Okay. Although he indirectly supported Marathas, but he openly remained neutral. Okay, he did not directly support. Okay, he indirectly supported. He indirectly supported Marathas. He indirectly supported Marathas. When Marathas were badly defeated, what happened? When Marathas were badly defeated, Maharaja Surajmal, okay, MSM means Maharaja Surajmal, okay, provided them food, etc. Okay, so when Marathas were badly defeated, Maharaja Surajmal provided them with food, etc. He also tried to save he also tried to save ordinary Maratha women during the war. Okay. So Maharaja Surajmal also tried to save ordinary Maratha women during the third battle of Panipat, but he did not openly fight against Ahmad Shah Abdali. Okay, he did not openly fight along with Marathas. Okay, so this was his role in third battle of Panipat. Now, uh, where did this question arise of that? From where did Maratha women etc. came? So actually, many non-combatants were also part of Maratha army. Okay, this thing you have to remember. Many non-combatants, many non-combatants means those who do not fight the war. Many non-combatants were also a part of. Were also a part of the Maratha army. Okay, so many non-combatants were also a part of the Maratha army actually. Okay, so just a second, guys, just a second. Yes. So many non-combatants were also part of the Maratha army, like family members. Okay. So whenever the army went on war, all the family members of the foot soldiers and royal family, all those also went together. Okay, so the entire crowd of people went together. So when many non-combatants were also part of the Maratha army, like family members. Okay, like family members, women, children, etc. Okay, women did not fight wars, right? Women, children, etc. So what did Maharaja Surajmal do? Okay, so Maharaja Surajmal actually tried to save these people. These non-combatants he tried to save. So overall his approach was, Maharaja Surajmal's approach towards the third battle of Panipat was neutral. Okay. So there was reason behind it. Okay, Maharaja Surajmal was neutral. In third battle of Panipat, because of Maratha policies and their arrogance. Now, do not ever think that this Ahmad Shah Abdali was an Afghan person. Okay, he was from Afghanistan. Ahmad Shah Abdali. So, why did Maharaja Surajmal not support the Marathas in order to save India? So the thing is that such concept of modern day nationalism did not exist at that time. Okay, Maharaja Surajmal used to think that this Jat state is my country. Marathas used to think that Maratha empire is our country. So modern day India as a whole, this concept was not there during those days. Okay, so that's why he did not think that Ahmad Shah Abdali is a foreigner. He actually, Marathas were also a foreigner for Maharaja Surajmal. Marathas were also foreigner, and Ahmad Shah Abdali was also foreigner only. Okay, because modern day India as a whole country, that complete concept was not there during those days. So Maharaja Surajmal was neutral in third battle of Panipat because of Marathas policies. Okay, Maratha policy and their arrogance. I told you about the arrogance of Sadashiv Rao Bhau. Okay, Maratha policies and their arrogance. Okay, so because of this, Marathas actually lost. Because of Maratha policies and their arrogance, Marathas lost what? Marathas lost one very important ally. Lost one very important ally. Because of Marathas policies and their arrogance, lost one very important ally. So, but this was also one of the reason that Marathas did not get anyone support. On the other hand, Ahmad Shah Abdali was getting support. Okay, on the other hand, Ahmad Shah Abdali in third battle of Panipat on the other hand, Ahmad Shah Abdali in third battle of Panipat got the support of. Okay, support of allies like Rohillas, Rohilla Afghans and Awadh. Okay, Rohillas and Awadh. These Rohillas are also Afghans, already told to you. Okay, these are also Afghans. Okay, now Marathas also used to collect taxes. Okay, arrogant taxes and plunder also. They used to plunder the regions of their neighbors. Okay, so this was also reason why Marathas did not get any internal help. Okay, Marathas did not get Marathas did not get any help from the Indian rulers. because of their taxation policies, because of aggressive taxation policies with neighboring kingdoms. Because of aggressive taxation policies with neighboring kingdoms. Now we will learn about state of Kerala. Okay, only this much is required for charts. Now we will learn about state of Kerala. Towards the beginning of 18th century, okay, let us write over here. Towards the beginning of 18th century. What does it mean by beginning of 18th century? Okay, 1700 onwards. Okay, 1700 to 1710. Okay, so this is the meaning of towards the beginning of 18th century. Okay, the present day region of Kerala. Present day region of Kerala was divided amongst various small autonomous and semi-autonomous states. Now, what does it mean by autonomous? Autonomous means independent. Okay, and a semi-autonomous means ruling under someone's rule. Okay, ruling as subordinate to someone. That is the meaning of semi-autonomous. And the meaning of autonomous is independent rule. Okay, so during 1700 to 1710, the present day region of Kerala. Where is present day region of Kerala? Okay, you must be knowing this, that this is suppose India. Okay, southern part of India. So this region comprises of Kerala, right? This region comprises of Kerala. So actually it was divided into 2 or 3 states. Okay, and this was the situation during 1700 to 1710. Okay, present day Kerala came into existence after independence. Okay, so present day region of Kerala was divided among various small autonomous and semi-autonomous states. The prominent among them were Calicut, Cochin, Chirakkal, Calicut, Cochin, Chirakkal, and Travancore. These were the most important ones. Okay. Now, the state of Travancore. Okay. The state of Travancore under the able leadership under the able leadership of Martanda Varma. Okay, this is a very important fact, that the state of Travancore was under the able leadership of Martanda Varma. Who is known as maker of modern Travancore. Okay, maker of means present day Travancore, which is a part of Kerala state. So maker of modern day Travancore, the modern day political boundaries of Travancore are made by Martanda Varma. Okay, they were made by Martanda Varma. So maker of modern Travancore. Maker of modern Travancore. So the present day political boundaries, which whatever under Kerala also there are subdivisions, right? So the modern day Travancore, which is there in the Kerala state, whatever are its political boundaries, okay, those were made by actually Martanda Varma. Okay, so that's why he is called as maker of modern Travancore. So this particular Travancore state, okay, this sentence is not complete yet. The state of Travancore under the able leadership of Martanda Varma, who is known as maker of modern Travancore, okay, emerged as a powerful and prosperous state. Emerged as a powerful and prosperous state. He ruled Travancore. He means Martanda Varma. Okay, he ruled Travancore from 1729 till 1758. Okay, these years are not important, but nearby, where they lie nearby, okay, you should have a rough idea, so that you can arrange the events in chronological order whenever they appear in your question paper of prelims. Okay, so he ruled Travancore from 1729 to 1758. He modernized his army. Okay, in 1741 what happened? In 1741? In 1741 he decisively defeated. Okay, this is very important point. He decisively defeated the Dutch, okay, in 1741 he decisively defeated the Dutch East India Company. The Dutch East India Company in the Battle of Kolachel. Okay, in the Battle of Kolachel, he decisively defeated the Dutch East India Company. Now, where is this Kolachel? Okay, Kolachel is in present day Tamil Nadu. Okay, Kanyakumari district. There is Kolachel. Okay, district of Tamil Nadu. Okay. So in 1741, Martand Varma decisively defeated the Dutch East India Company in the Battle of Kolachel. Now this is a very important fact. Why? Because there are very few examples where Indians have defeated the European companies. Okay, because the European had modern weapons. Indians did not have modern weapons. Okay, so there are very few examples in the history, modern history, where Indian rulers have defeated Europeans. Okay, so this is one of those examples where Indians have defeated Europeans. Okay, despite their modern weapons. Okay, so very few examples are there, and this is one of them, that Martand Varma defeated the Dutch East India Company in the Battle of Kolachel, and Kolachel is in Kanyakumari district of present day Tamil Nadu. Okay. So Dutch East India Company was defeated in 1741 by Martand Varma in the Battle of Kolachel, which is in present day Kanyakumari district of Tamil Nadu. Now, what happened to other states? Okay, the other states in the region of Kerala. So actually, out of Calicut, Cochin, Chirakkal, and Travancore. Travancore emerged to be the most powerful later on. Okay, Travancore emerged to be the most powerful later on. Okay. So I have already told to you that there are very few battles in which Indian kings have defeated European companies. Okay, and this Battle of Kolachel is one of them. So that's why you should remember it. Okay. Now, Martand Varma, what did he do? Martand Varma gave patronage to Malayalam and Sanskrit literature. Okay, this is also very important. Martand Varma gave patronage. Martand Varma gave patronage to Malayalam and Sanskrit literature. Okay. So Martand Verma gave patronage to Malayalam and Sanskrit literature. He also prompted, okay, what did he do? Prompted foreign trade, okay. Prompted foreign trade. Commissioned roads. Commissioned roads, canals, and irrigation project. Okay. So what did Martand Verma do? He gave patronage to Malayalam and Sanskrit literature. He prompted foreign trade, commissioned road and canals, okay, and irrigation project. Okay. Now his successor was Rama Verma. Okay. His successor Rama Verma. (1758 to 98). Okay, from 1729 to 1758, Martand Verma was there. Okay, 1729 to 58 was Martand Verma. Then 1758 to 98 is Rama Verma. Okay. So his successor Rama Verma, 1758 to 98, allowed the good work. Initiated by Martand Verma. To continue. Okay. Rama Verma allowed the good work to continue, which was initiated by Martand Verma. Okay. He transferred. Now this is a very important fact. Okay. Rama Verma transferred the capital. Very important point. Transferred the capital from Padmanabhapuram okay, from Padmanabhapuram to Tiruvarantapuram. Okay, so Rama Verma transferred the capital from Padmanabhapuram to Tiruvananthapuram. Now, how will UPSC actually make you a fool? Okay, UPSC, what will it do? UPSC will write the statement that Martand Verma shifted the capital from Padmanabhapuram to Tiruvananthapuram. Okay, as soon as UPSC writes that Martand Verma shifted the capital from Padmanabhapuram to Tiruvananthapuram. As soon as UPSC writes this in the form of statement, the statement becomes factually wrong, because it was not Martand Verma who shifted the capital from Padmanabhapuram to Tiruvananthapuram. It was not Martand Varma. Instead, it was Ram Varma. Okay. So this is how you have to prepare. Okay. Keeping your senses on. Okay. So now many of you said that the paper 2023 prelims was very tough. Okay, it was not tough at all. Okay, I have seen the paper. I would rate the paper as moderate. Okay, if someone has studied seriously, then he could have easily cracked the prelims. Okay, so I would rather rate the paper as moderate instead of tough. Okay, but a majority of students said that it was tough. Every year they say that it was tough. Okay, except the year 2016, 2015. In those years it used to be very easy. Okay, but now it is getting tougher and tougher. Okay, so UPSC became the second toughest exam in the world. Okay, in the world I am saying, in India it is the toughest. For India it is the toughest, but if we talk about the whole globe, okay, around the whole globe it is the second toughest exam after some law exam of the foreign country. Okay, it is the second toughest exam on the globe. So you have to prepare accordingly. Okay, so but still I would rather rate the yesterday's paper as moderate. Why moderate? Because if someone has studied properly, then he could have easily cracked prelims. Okay, the paper was not very difficult for a person who has studied seriously. For those who have studied seriously, the paper is not difficult. Okay, but the persons who study seriously are hardly amongst 15,000, 20,000 students all around India. Okay, 15 lakh people fill the form for examination. 15 lakh people fill the form for examination, but hardly 20,000 students are there who have studied seriously. Okay, sacrificing everything. Okay, others, the 14 lakh 90,000 students, what do they do? 14 lakh 90,000 students are actually watching web series, enjoying panchayat. Okay, and all these things. Okay, seeing web series, watching web series, watching Netflix. They are busy doing that. Then how will they ever qualify UPSC? They don't even leave Instagram, Facebook. I always tell my students to quit Instagram and Facebook, but they do not quit it. Okay, because they are fully addicted to it. So these are the things which makes the competition tough. This exam wants that you should quit everything and just indulge in studies for 1 or 2 years. Okay, so Ram Varma transferred the capital from Padmanabhapuram to Tiruvananthapuram. Okay, however, in 1795, what happened? So Rama Varma transferred the capital from Padmanabhapuram to Tiruvananthapuram. However, in 1795, I am really sorry for my bad handwriting, but you are getting the things. Okay. However, in 1795, Travancore state signed the Treaty of Subsidiary Alliance. However, in 1795, Travancore state signed the Treaty of Subsidiary Alliance with the British East India Company. Okay, with the British East India Company. So in 1795, Travancore actually signed the Treaty of Subsidiary Alliance with the British East India Company. Okay, 1795 means during the reign of Rama Varma. This happened during the reign of Ramavarma. Okay, during the reign of Ramavarma. Okay. There is a temple in Padmanabhapuram. If you know the thing, that there is a temple in Padmanabhapuram, and it is one of the richest temples in India. Okay, let us write over here. There is a temple. Okay, what Padmanabhapuram is known for its temple. Okay, Padma Padmanabha Padmanabhapuram. So there is a temple, and one of the richest temples. One of the richest temples in India. Okay, in India temples are always rich. Okay, in India temples are like Adani Ambani. They are very rich. Okay, because they get a lot of chadawa. Okay, so Bangash, Pathans and Rohillas. Let us talk about them. Okay, let us talk about Bangash, Pathans and Rohillas. The Bangash Pathans. Now though both these Bangash Pathans and Rohillas, both were Afghans actually. Okay, Bangash Pathans and Rohillas. Okay, Bangash Pathans and Rohillas. Now we will talk about Bangash Pathans and Rohillas, but after some time. Okay, after some time. Let me have some water. I am keeping the recording also on only. Recording also on only. Okay, but we will learn about Bangash Pathans and Rohillas after just 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, I am taking 2 or 3 minutes break. Let me have some water. So let me see if the recording is on or not. Okay, let me see. Okay, sure, the recording is going on. So we will talk about Bangash Pathans and Rohillas. Now these both Bangash Pathans and Rohillas were Afghans. Okay, so yes, so both were Afghans. Let us write properly. Both were Afghans. Okay. Towards the mid of 18th century onwards, what happened? Now we are writing the heading is Bangash Pathans and Rohillas. Okay, so mid of 18th century. Means 1750s, around 1750s. Okay, around 1750s. So during the mid of 18th century onwards, a large number of Afghans, okay, a large number of Afghans, a large number of Afghans migrated to India. They mainly served. Okay, large number of Afghans in the 1750s. What happened? Large number of Afghans migrated to India. Okay, they mainly served in the armies of Afghan and other nobles. They mainly served in the armies of Afghan and other nobles. Okay. Okay, Afghan nobles, we have already discussed what were the categories of nobles. Okay, in the modern India during the reign of Mughals, what were the factions of nobility? We have already learnt. So amongst those factions of nobility, Afghans were also a faction. So in the 1750s, a large number of Afghans actually migrated to India and served in the armies of Afghans and other nobles. Okay. Now, an ambitious Afghan noble, an ambitious Afghan noble Muhammad Khan Bangash established his control. Okay, ambitious Afghan noble Muhammad Khan Bangash established his control over the region of Farrukhabad. Okay, so Muhammad Khan Bangash established his control over the region of Farrukhabad. What is Farrukhabad? This is a region between Aligarh and Kanpur. Okay, region between Aligarh and Kanpur. Okay. Similarly, the Rohilla. Similarly, this was done by Muhammad Khan Bangash. Okay. Similarly, Rohilla chief, Rohilla Afghan leader. Daud Khan. Okay. Rohilla Afghan leader Daud Khan and his son Ali Muhammad Khan. Okay. And his son Ali Muhammad Khan. Enlarged their small state. Okay. So Rohilla Afghan leader Daud Khan and his son Ali Muhammad Khan enlarged, okay, obtained, rather than say obtained, small estate in the Bareilly region. To an independent state of Rohilkhand. Okay. So Rohilkhand was founded by and named it Rohilkhand. Okay. So enlarged their small estate in the Bareilly region to an independent state of Rohilkhand. Okay. Now this Rohilkhand actually, this fact is not important, but those who are local to Uttar Pradesh, they must be knowing this, that this Rohilkhand actually extends. Okay. Kumaon Hills. Kumaon Hills in the north. Kumaon Hills in north to Ganga river in south. Okay. This is the extension of Rohilkhand. हाँ अरे यार. Okay, so Kumaon Hills in north to Ganga river in south. This is the extension of Rohilkhand. Okay. So Rohilla Afghan leader Daud Khan and his son Ali Muhammad Khan obtained small estate in the Bareilly region and named it independent state of Rohilkhand, which extended from Kumaon Hills in the north to the Ganga river in the south. Okay. Now what exactly is this Rohilkhand? Okay. Rohilkhand. Actually I am writing on this pen tab after quite a long time. Okay. So that's why my handwriting has become a little bit bad over here. So today's, what is this Rohilkhand? Today's Rampur. Okay. It is today's Rampur, Bareilly. Bijnor. This was the region of Rohilkhand. Okay, all these are in UP only, Uttar Pradesh only. Ali Muhammad Khan, what did he do? Ali Muhammad Khan was the son of Daud Khan. Okay, son of Daud Khan. Expanded territories of Rohilkhand. Okay, expanded the territories of Rohilkhand. So Ali Muhammad Khan, who was the son of Daud Khan, actually expanded the territories of Rohilkhand following the confusion. Okay. After Nadir Shah's invasion. So taking advantage of the confusion which happened after Nadir Shah's invasion. Okay. Invasion. This is invasion. Okay. Invasion. SION. Okay. So after Nadir Shah's invasion in 1739. Now this year you must remember Nadir Shah. When did Nadir Shah invade India? So Nadir Shah invaded India in 1739. This thing you must know. So Ali Muhammad Khan, actually, who was the son of Daud Khan, expanded the territories of Rohilkhand following the confusion after Nadir Shah's invasion in 1739. Okay. So capital of Rohilkhand. Rohilkhand's capital. What was the capital of Rohilkhand? This thing also you must remember. So capital of Rohilkhand was Awalan. Okay. Awalan. It is in present day Bareilly. Okay. It is in present day Bareilly. Okay. So capital of Rohilkhand was Awalan, which is in present day Bareilly. Afghans were quite powerful in northeast and central India. You must remember this. Afghans were quite powerful. Let us write. Afghans were quite powerful in north east and central India. Afghans were quite powerful in northeast and central India. They used to raid. Okay. They were used to they had the habit of raiding their enemy's territory. Like Marathas. Okay. They were used to raiding their enemy's territories. Okay. They were used to means उनकी आदत थी. Okay. So they were in a habit of raiding their enemy's territories, just like Marathas. Okay. Afghans fought with 6 Afghans fought with 6 Jats, Rajputs, etc. Afghans fought with 6 Jats, Rajputs, etc. Okay. Just a second, guys. Let me see. So, from here onwards, we will do in the next class. Okay. Already the time is quite. The video is quite long already. Okay. So let us do from here onwards in the next class. Okay. So see you then in the next class. Okay. So till then, just revise all these facts which I have already told to you. Okay. So let me write over here just a second. So just revise all these things and watch the next class. Okay, because the recording will come soon. Thank you very much.